On this episode of the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, we are live-ish from the Outdoor Ministries Connection Great Gathering. We're sitting down with some friends who we've been hanging out with all week at the gathering, and we've got some good questions for them. Welcome to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. We're behind the mic and behind the research, turning insights into impact and numbers into North Stars for camping ministries and the intrepid leaders that serve them. Each episode blends thoughtful theology, compelling data, and actionable wisdom, all to help camps thrive today, tomorrow, and for years to come. I'm your host and producer, Jared Rendell, Director of Innovation and Communication for Sacred Playgrounds. Joining me is Director and Lead Researcher, Jake Sorensen, a PhD-level scholar, experienced ministry practitioner, and the founder of Sacred Playground. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, the support button to help make these episodes happen, and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Sacred Playgrounds, and always at sacredplaygrounds.com. Explore with us what God might have in store at your Sacred Playground. Welcome to the playground, everyone. The playground is full. Hi, everybody. You can all say hi right from there.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So, we've got some friends in the house. We are at the Outdoor Ministries Connection Great Gathering in Lake Junaluska, North Carolina. It's been a great week.
How amazing is it to be in person for once, right? We usually do this where you're in one place and I'm in the other, but we get to be in the same place, and not just us. We get to be with friends.
The extroverts are freaking out right now. So somebody asked my wife how, was I going to come back and be all exhausted and drained? And she's like, no, this is what he's in. Yeah.
Me too, man. I mean, this is what I live for, right? This in-person stuff and connecting with people that sometimes we're only connecting with virtually, or we're only getting like reports or numbers from, but actually to connect with people face to face, to hear what's going on in their lives and actually check in. Like, how are you doing? And to have them ask the same thing of me and listen to me, for them to be ministering to me, it's just such a valuable thing. So we say this all the time, in person matters.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah, so this gathering happens, just in case you're, hey, I haven't really heard of this before. This is a gathering that happens without Outdoor Ministries Connection. 6 associations come together every 6 years or so to hang out together and do an ecumenical gathering of 500 of our closest friends. So it's been a blast. It's been a great week. When we get a chance to get in person with these folks, we want to hear some of their stories. And so we're going to hear a couple things. One, we're going to hear about times when they have learned something. They've gathered some insights and they did something about it. They put something in action and they made something happen. And they've got some great stories about that. And then we're also going to hear from them about just some of their best of the best practices. I love hearing these things from other camp leaders. And so we figured, since we had this time behind the mic, let's hear some of the things that they are just really great at their particular site. If you have preemptively, if you've got those things, if you've got your best of the best practice, you get to submit that too. You can shoot a video, you can send us some audio, you can write it out. We'd love to gather some of these best of the best practices, and that's some of what you'll hear today. So that's the plan. Let's dive in. Here's number one, and this is going to be our quick camp question for the week.
Quick camp question.
All right, you guys. So here's a question. And this is a question that we asked prior to the conference. We did on the podcast. We talked with Kat and Joanne, who are the coordinators for the conference. And one of the questions that we asked them was around why this matters, why doing things like this matters, doing things intentionally, ecumenically, cross-denominationally. Why is stuff like this important? So as leaders and participants, I'm curious about your answer to that same question.
Yeah, well, hi, everyone. My name's Cam Regnider. I'm with Rainbow Trail Lutheran Camp in Hillside, Colorado. I think this is really important because I think that sometimes in this type of ministry, you might feel alone, or you might feel like there's not a lot of people knowing what you're going through as a full-time member, or running a camp and working with kids and mentoring young adults. And so being able to widen the spectrum of people we come across at these conferences is really cool. Obviously, in the LOM network, we create those relationships and see everybody year to year at least. But when we get a wide in the spectrum, meet new faces, meet new philosophies, I think that really benefits the different ways you're able to learn how to not just maybe think of running program, but even just the way that you approach new conversations and new practices. And man, the more the merrier.
Hi, all. My name's Maddie Glanz. I serve at Luther Heights Bible Camp out in Idaho in the Sawtooth Mountain Range. The ecumenical connections made here, and more specifically in the context of where I'm at in the West, as the fewer and fewer main lines are a little more sparse out where I'm at. The connections that we make with our partners have been some of the most fruitful since I've started in this ministry. Truly, our camp wouldn't function without our ecumenical partnerships. And so it's a big part of what we do. So coming to the Great Gathering was a no-brainer to expand that mindset to how we can continue to serve each other and learn from each other and grow.
Hi, my name is Amy Eklund, and I'm coming from Wanakee Camp and Retreat Center in Ohio. And I would say the main thing about coming to the Great Gathering is really getting outside of our comfort zone, outside of our main denomination that we live and breathe in every day. As we work with our guest groups at camp, they are coming from all different places. So it helps to have that variety.
Hi, my name is Elise Bates Russell, and I am honored to serve as the executive director at Johnsonburg Camp and Retreat Center. Johnsonburg is a Presbyterian-affiliated camp and retreat center in western New Jersey. When I think about ecumenism and how important it is to work together with our brothers and sisters, I'm taken back to the many conversations we had when we began this work back in 2012 as we dreamed about the Outdoor Ministries connection. I was blessed to be at the table during that time. And some of the things we shared around that table was how we felt that a pattern of joined living is practice for life. When our campers go to school or play on sports teams, at least in New Jersey, they're not often with other children who look exactly like them or believe exactly what they do or eat the same foods or even have the same family systems. And so worshiping and playing in an authentic Christian community that has the diversity and the full witness of the kingdom of God, I think is a way more beautiful picture that we can offer them as an experience. And so I have learned through working with my Lutheran and United Methodist and United Church of Christ and UCC Canada and all the different brothers and sisters and siblings in Christ, that the question that we tend to ask over and over is, what can we do better together?
Thanks, you guys. You guys you've got a story to share a little bit about how, and here's a question that we'll ask overall. This is a tell us about a time. Any good interview these days has a tell us about a time question. So I'd love to hear a little bit of these stories about a time when you learned something, you came across something, you grabbed some insights, found some research, and you said, yeah, I think that's a thing that might make a difference for us, and we're going to use it, and we're going to do something about it. For me and my role, for you and your program, whatever it might be. And I love that you guys kind of each have some different thoughts and ideas and stories there. And so I'd love to hear about this time when you came across some insights, you chose to have an intervention with whatever your thing was, and what you learned out of that, why it mattered, the difference it made.
Yeah, I can start us off. I think from our standpoint, we came from more of a programmatic standpoint. Sacred Playgrounds came and visited our program a couple years ago and stayed for the week, and just to kind of evaluate how we run our on-site program. We run a village system philosophy, and so that gives the campers a lot of opportunity to take leadership, make a lot of decisions, and whatever that means. And the feedback we got from that study is a lot of positive, that we do a lot of good things, which is what you want, not just for us, but for the campers and the staffers we bring along with us, from culture to activities to the way we interact with parents and everything in between. But the one thing that we got a hiccup on was the technology side. And you ask anybody, kind of anybody right now, but especially in the camp world, there's some point where they come across some adversity when it comes to technology or cell phones specifically. Obviously, being a camp, your automatic thought is you want to be out the outdoors and disconnect. But obviously, that's hard to do with some of the generational standpoints. And so we took a step back and really tried to think of a new philosophy of how to implement a no cell phone policy, but how to do it the right way versus just saying, don't bring your phones, because that doesn't work. That doesn't work all the time. And so from that study, what we did is we made it more of a partnership with our staffers. And so we wrote a policy together, informed our staff of the why. That's the biggest connection. Why is this something we would do? And once they understand that why of, man, there's a whole nother layer of camp and connections you have no idea about because of this thing. They took the challenge on, and once we were able to implement that in our staff during staff training, that easily flowed down to our campers, and the whole culture changed. When we applied the same policy to our adult leaders and pastors who came to site, besides taking pictures, if they had to do anything other kind of business, they go to our main building, but they're away from the kids, right? And I can honestly say 5 or 6 different pastors came to me or my exec, and they would say over and over, we don't know what you guys did differently this year, but this is the most connected staff I've felt like I've been a part of, and a couple of family campers feeling that way. And part of it is that staff culture, but I think part of it is that intentionality of being present. And, there's so many different reasons to be distracted on a phone, whether they're good, bad, or ugly, but knowing at the end of the day that they're up in the mountains to do Jesus's work, and connection is probably one of the biggest things to do that. And so getting that feedback from Sacred Playground for us really helped us understand, okay, we can take this thing to the next level, even though we felt good about it already.
Love that, Cam. And you guys, like you said, there's a way to do this right. And you guys sent some stuff. Dave sent some stuff over. Like you guys wrote this out. You did, like, you talked with your staff, wrote letters so that people were on the same page. The last episode right before this was about that, getting on the same page with, like, those adult leaders, like those church leaders, like our parents. And I loved how intentional you guys were across audiences to get everybody on board, right? And so that culture could get built like that. I love that. Thanks, man.
Great. So my Tell Me About a Time is about how the camp that I currently work for, Luther Heights, was around January. We experienced a leadership shift, and our executive director stepped away into another nonprofit, which kind of left the board uncertain about what we were going to do. Kind of known in a trend in smaller camps that often operate seasonally. Luther Heights is open from the very last week of May to the very first week of October. So not a ton of time in there to do on-site program and generate that revenue, right? And because of that, our camp budget can really sustain that one year-round full-time director. And so me as the program director, after the exec stepped down, was interested to serve this camp still. This is a community that I feel called to, the people that I know and love and want to continue to grow in this place, and really felt that deep in who I am. And at the same time, I was approached by one of our awesome partner churches, like, hey, Maddie, do you want to be our youth director? We've been looking. We love you. We know your job's uncertain at the moment. And gave me an amazing offer, truly. And I had to go to the board and say, hey, I'm being offered this. I love camp, and camp's in my bones and what I want to be doing. And was able to write an official proposal. And the first thought I had was to go to Sacred Playgrounds, because I knew they had that OMC compensation report. And so what that research and the good work of Sacred Playgrounds did for me and my family was to give some very real data to what's happening over the course of all these OMC camps, and how our people are being compensated, and the different ways to narrow down that data was super helpful for the board of directors to really see what was comparable with ours and the growing rate of how Idaho is. We have a lot of just cost of living is getting crazy, as it is with everywhere, but kind of a steady increase where we're at. So given all those factors, the board was in agreement and felt really good about giving me and my family a place to land where I can continue my ministry, keep my kids in daycare at an affordable price, and just continue to serve Luther Heights the best I can and fulfill those roles in one.
Thanks, Matt. That's super helpful. I love the context that you got to use that stuff in, right? And like this OMC compensation data covers all of these denominations. Really, I mean, it's ecumenical and it's in its nature and design. I love that you got to use that really tangibly there. Like, that particular data probably gets used most often in like in setting staff salaries is the one that it gets used most often, but that you could use that to advocate for yourself and get to keep doing the thing that you love and are called to. I love that. Great story.
So I would say one thing that we've been doing with our parent surveys is we've been getting time after time, there's not enough pictures of the kids. We need more pictures. We want to see pictures throughout the week. And so what we did is each of our groups, we bought just a point and shoot camera so they don't have their cell phones around with them. And so the kids are taking pictures of each other and pictures of their groups and the fun activities that they do. And it was a cheap alternative and still was able to keep that cell phone away. And we're getting good reports of, yes, I love seeing all the pictures. And it's great to hear from them at the end of the week and throughout the week as well.
I love that. We talked about that a little bit at this week. Jake and I got to do a handful of workshops. Kelsey and our team got to do a couple of workshops while we were here. One that Jake was doing around this, like these camp and church and home connections. We were talking again about how, and it's a shift from this no news is good news kind of idea with parents. Take my kid, we're good, I'm out for the week, to they're just so used to, we've talked about it here on the podcast before, how used to being connected and having access to their kids they are. So over communicating with them, seeing their kids smiling and happy. And of course we want that at the end of the week. If we can give them that gift, during the week, and that you didn't have to do that in a way that really distracted or took away much from the experience at all, enhanced it, added to it, right? Let them, and that they got to do that together.
I have learned in my ministry that I value feedback. I value feedback from all of our constituents, from the youngest to the oldest. I think that listening groups and evaluations are critically important. We do evaluations after every single program we offer, and we take those evaluations extremely seriously. We know that while we can never get anything perfect in what we do as a ministry, there is always room for improvement. And so I find that at Johnsonburg, we are constantly pushing and asking, what can we do better and how can we improve? If somebody doesn't feel welcome or somebody feels like something wasn't designed to include them, then I truly believe that we have failed. And our mission statement says, where all may gather, where all are welcome, and where all are invited to share gracious hospitality, joyful Christian community, and the wonder of God's creation. And so those pieces of our mission statement are also reflected in our outcomes, and we strive really hard to endeavor to achieve those, because I think that that's a huge piece of the welcome at Johnsonburg, thereby giving people an experience of authentic Christian community, like I mentioned earlier. We were really grateful this past summer to be able to participate in the Effective Camp Project with Sacred Playgrounds. And so very candidly, that data gathering has emboldened our evaluation process even more and given us some data to think about in even better ways how we can make sure that everybody feels included. Johnsonburg is a really incredible place because all of the campers come from a variety of backgrounds. We are extremely diverse. And often people will say to me, oh, it must be so hard that the campers come from different ethnic backgrounds, or they're different races, or they're different sexual orientation. But generally what I tell people is it's actually the socioeconomic difference that makes a difference. We have campers that come from a 2-bedroom apartment in a situation where they live with 8 people in that 2-bedroom apartment, and others who have their own suite of rooms. And so coming and living together in a cabin for a week and sharing personal space and becoming vulnerable with each other and building community is sometimes really hard and really messy. We don't always get it right, but one of the things I think that we have learned to do very well is just to be so welcoming to such a wide variety of people and to try to teach them how to live with somebody different. And so when the data from this past summer's Effective Camp Project came back, it was really interesting and really rewarding to see so many campers talk about how they had made a friend that was very different than themselves, and also how they felt they could be their true self at camp when they couldn't do that anywhere else. And I think those 2 numbers were very telling to the ministry that's happening at Johnsonburg today.
Hey, camp friends. The Sacred Playgrounds team is committed to keeping our podcast free because we believe that the impacts and stories of camp should be shared far and wide. But it isn't free to produce. We keep everything in-house, but even so, each episode costs us about $450 to produce. If you find these conversations, quick camp questions, and stats helpful in your ministry, consider buying the team a cup of coffee. We use the Coffee platform to accept your one-time and recurring offers of support. ko-fi.com/Sacred Playgrounds. Thanks.
All right, here's the other question I have for you guys. When we get a chance to do this, I love hearing stuff that you're really good at. I think it's valuable, and we see that here. We have these conversations, and whether it's a workshop or whether we're sitting outside by the lake, we end up in these conversations where we hear, "Oh, we do this for that," and it works really well. And so you guys is in program roles, you got notes like crazy. You've already told me you've got notes like crazy about, we gotta think about that. We gotta go look at that. So I love hearing some of the best of the best. When you get this many people together, this many camp leaders, you've got some amazing practices, right? And all of us have stuff to learn. But I'm curious about, for your camp, like, what's the thing that you absolutely are awesome at? What's the thing you're a lead at? What's the thing you just crush at your camp? It's likely kind of part of your identity, part of your kind of brand. What's that thing that campers talk about, or that you find yourself telling stories about, telling pastors about? What's that thing for you? That's the question.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we're good at is our staff culture, not just full time, but summer. We have, since like I said earlier, we run on a village system. So like a lot of camps, you want to hire people who can lead in the middle, take lead when they need to, but also let the kids get the spotlight when they need to as well. But we believe that the way we do staff training and set them up, we do 7 weeks of online staff training. So there's familiarity coming into staff training. And then when they're there for the 2 weeks, there's all the legal stuff, there's all the play, fun stuff. But then I think also the empowerment that we're able to give those staff, just like we're able to give those campers during their weeks. And, there's a reason where we did the math at the LOM night or Lutheran night last night. And out of that whole room, we had about 14 people who were our program assistants, our interns, who are now full-time ministry, which is, it's a blessing. And it's also just amazing that that program is also being able to pop out great people into the outdoor ministry world. But we just strongly believe that the culture, that not just that we're able to lead, but our staff really gets empowered and create on their own. And it shows over and over and over every year. Returner rate, and then people who go work at other camps, not just from the program assistant position, but from summer staff to that. It's man, God's good, and it helps us out. And recruiting's tough, but when you're able to create that culture, it's just really cool that people want to be a part of that. So
that as you're talking, like, we obviously, we talk a lot of data, we talk a lot of numbers. People are the best data, right? And so, like, that's the best evidence. People are the best evidence, so that you can look around that room and go, you cut your teeth here, right? With us and that. And they're in these different roles, and these, starting to lead more and are the future of this industry. I love that.
Yeah, for us, I want to say the first thing that came to mind was high school ministry, high school youth week in our LIT program, our assistant counselor leader in training program that Kelly Proboski, the exec before me, started to build at and built at Luther Heights. And I say that not because it's the most organized program. I will be the first as the organizer to tell you it is not organized by any way, shape, or form. But it is in that free form of, you want to make quesadillas at 2 a.m.? Great. I'm going to make those for you. We're going to watch Moana on the big screen. We're going to do whatever you guys want, because camp is yours. We have a good yes attitude for our high schoolers, that I want them to do those things at camp that they never thought was allowed. And they're silly, and it's not a big deal. Like, you can ride the bikes at night if you have giant headlights and go watch the stars. We're in a dark sky reserve. If you want to your favorite spot on the lake, I don't care, as long as you take a walkie-talkie and you have somebody who's wilderness first aid certified. It doesn't matter. So we're good at saying yes, and that retention has come in my staff, as 10 to 14 of them were people who had gone through that program. a couple years ago, and just to see how much they want to be at camp. And I think the real kicker is a lot of those kids who go through our LIT program are not in church, and they crave those friendships that they make year round, to the point where they're getting together on Sundays and having dinner, and they want that community to continue. So real community, real connection, and real friendships that they don't see in their schools.
So that freedom, that fancy words, agency, right? And we talk about that with staff, and we talk about that with campers too. Like, we ask campers questions around, do you have a say? Did you have a say in your camp experience? And it is one of the factors. When they do, their outcomes are better, right? Their growth metrics are better, their outcomes are better. So I feel like we're learning with these staff that, like, our role, our leader role, our program leader role, our exec leader role is to create the space for these things, not overdo it, not overpack that agenda, not step by step everything, but create some space and then give them some agency to fill it and see what happens. And then debrief it with them and give them context and bring Jesus into it, right? And that's where we get to do that. So, like, I feel like I'm learning, and outside of camp too. We talk about this in my home church. Like, our job in youth ministry right now is to create space and let them do it. And so those high school youth, yeah, I agree.
So the thing I think of the most with Wanakee and what makes it different is we do small group decentralized camping, which means that we have about 8 to 10 kids with 2 counselors, and they plan out their week. From the beginning, they get to decide what programs they're doing. Are they going hiking? Are they going swimming? Are they going canoeing? What are those things? And then they also cook over the fire 3 times a week or more if they decide. And they get to pick which meals they cook over the fire. Are they making tacos, or are they making pie irons, or are they making some chicken meal or something in a Dutch oven? What is it? And what are those choices that all these kids get to make? Camper choice is a big thing, and camper leadership, and really learning how to work in that community and build that community. The friendships at the end of that week are like phenomenal. And those kids come back year after year to be with those same kids.
Amy, are you an elite Dutch oven fire cook? Like, are you really? Is that the thing that you actually crush? What's your favorite thing to cook in the Dutch oven?
Brownies. Brownies are the best with like peanut butter frosting. Wow. Yeah.
We're all aspiring. We're all aspiring to this level.
When I arrived at Johnsonburg 12 years ago, one of the things that clearly needed to be strengthened was the board. I know that as nonprofits, I hear nonprofit leaders struggle constantly when they talk about the board of trustees or the board of directors, or maybe it's a camp committee or decision-making body that they need to work with. There were 30 seats on the board. And when I arrived, I said, how often do you fill all 30 seats? And the current board said, never. We usually fill 16 to 20. And so they said, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, Jesus traveled with 12. So we cut the board in half to 15 and have had a much easier time recruiting and engaging people to serve in that capacity. We have never wavered from sticking to terms of service and have worked really hard. It took about 3 years to turn it around. So I hope I can offer a word of encouragement to people, because healthy governance makes all the difference. This is a governance board and not a management board. They do not pick carpet colors. They do not decide programs for the camp. They are focused on what a governance board should do, which is seek to support a healthy organization, supervise the executive director, protect the assets, increase the resources, and safeguard the mission. And so I will say now, after about 9 years, 12 years of intentional work, but 9 years of a healthy board, Johnsonburg's been able to complete several capital campaigns and serve as a model for some other organizations who have come and observed. And while we are still humans, and as I said earlier, we're always messy, this is something that's very important. And I would encourage any nonprofit to focus on strengthening their board of trustees, giving them opportunities for education, for connection, for relationship building, and to experience the ministry that they're upholding, because it will make your camp and retreat and conference ministry stronger.
All right, you guys, I have one more question. We have been hanging out together this week at this gathering. We heard why these gatherings matter. Heard some things that that you are awesome at, and I love those stories. I'm curious about something that you're going to take away from this week, from this experience. We got the chance, around 500 of us to come together, and so something that you're going to take home, whether it's something you're kind of planning to implement, a conversation you're going to have, a thing you think you're going to do, something you're going to focus on.
One of the sessions I attended talked about the benefit of being outdoors, and how us as humans grew up in the outdoors for the last so and so years, and we have been in our modern era of technology and everything for only 0.01% as long as humans have been around. And so what I'm taking back from that workshop is, again, teaching the staff why, and campers why this is important, not just in the faith aspect, but also in the physical aspect, to disconnect, but also be in community. Nothing like being in community with 500 people on a lake, man. That is, it's been fun, but definitely just taking that fun fact but making it part of our culture as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away, as with most conferences, but I think really special that's in this place, is that connection equals innovation, or is very congruent to, in a way that's more deep than new program ideas, although I have a huge list of those in ways that we can do that. But building the contacts in your phone you can call when things go awry, or to celebrate wins with. In this work, I think about, we got to celebrate some amazing people who have given their life to this work. And I sat there in my seat just hoping that one day, I'm there, retiring from work well done, but to just be blessed to serve the people that we serve and meet them where they're at is a big thing that I'm taking away.
One of the sessions I went to, we were talking about green energy and how to look at your site and think of the things that you can do differently. Can you change your light bulbs? Can you really work on composting and some of those other little things? What are you doing now, and what can you do even a little better? Go to that next level. And some of those things we can definitely do.
I think the keynote by Brian McLaren had a lot of good nuggets in it, but one of the things that he said reminding us that wilderness recalibrates us to our original being as a creation of God. Really, in the end, that boils down to echo what some of my colleagues here have said, is that we need to be outside. We need to be connected to that which we came from, and that we have really, in reality, gotten so far away from it. And I appreciated that reminder from Brian McLaren.
Thank you. Thanks for the chance to chat when we can get other voices on here. So on behalf of all these listeners, thank you. We appreciate you guys very much. Listeners, if you get a chance, especially, the plan is to do this, so if you're maybe part of one of those OMC associations, the plan is to do this again in 6 years, to take a chance to gather with some of those folks who are part of a different tribe, a different tradition, and that's been really valuable. As has this conversation. You guys are the best. All right, before we go, we have a special on-site live-ish stat of the week this week.
Stat of the week. Stat of the week. Stat of the week.
All right, the stat of the week this week comes from our participants here at the Great Gathering. We asked them as they stopped by to take our self-assessment of the 5 fundamentals, and they chose one of the 5 fundamentals, and they rated themselves on a series of questions. And so there's 10 questions for each of the 5 fundamentals. So they picked one, they answered whether they were really good at this, they were excelling at this, that they gave it a 3. If they were on the right track for this, but they could use a little more work, they gave it a 2. If they were inconsistent at this or not so good at it, something that they definitely need to work on, they gave it a 1. And if they don't do it at all or do so very poorly, they gave it a 0. And so they gave themselves a self-score on each of the 5 fundamentals. What was really cool was to hear them have some conversations about, ooh, I didn't think about that part of relational. I didn't think about that part of unplugged from home. And so that's what the self-assessment tool is designed for. And so as you take that self-assessment yourself at your camp, or you have it, your board do it, or your staff members do it, you can compare to the numbers that we found from our friends at the Great Gathering. We had 46 different folks take the self-assessment. And so for safe space, the average score, and so this is out of 30. So there were 10 questions, 3 points possible for each question. So it's a total possible score of 30, lowest possible score of 0. For safe space, the average score was 22.6. So just above that, we're on the right track, kind of moving towards the we excel at this. The low score was 19. So below we are on the right track. And the high score was 26. For unplugged from home, the average was 23.4. That was the highest out of the 5 fundamentals. And so that makes a lot of sense. From our perspective, unplugged from home is something that we do, and we do it really well. And so the high score on that was a 28. That was the highest of any of the 5 fundamentals that anybody scored. So nobody got a perfect 30 out of 30 for themselves on any of the 5 fundamentals, but the 28 was the highest that anybody got, and that was on unplugged from home. The other 3 were a little bit lower on average. Faith-centered, the average was 21 even, and so we had some people that were really high. This one had the largest range, so we had as low as 13 on this one, so something that they said, this is not something that we do really well, and the high of 25, so people are definitely on the right track towards excelling at this. In participatory, the average score was 20.8, so right around that 21 again. So just above that average of we're on the right track. The low was 16, the high was 24.5, and then on relational, it was 20.7. This actually surprised me that relational was the lowest average overall. The fewest people took that one, but it was also really interesting to me because that's something that usually we really excel at. And so this is something I encourage you to do. You might think, oh yeah, we're relational because we're camp. But as you go through some of these questions, it can really help you dive into one of the 5 fundamentals and say, how are we really doing on these individual pieces of it? So that actually surprised me that relational was the lowest. It didn't surprise me that unplugged from home was the highest. So really interesting findings from this. And thanks for everybody that participated in this. And I hope you get a chance to do the self-assessment yourself and dive into the 5 fundamentals.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and you want to do that. We've this was a tool that we had built. If you've listened the last few weeks, it was kind of a little ad block that had that 5 fundamental self-assessment. But it's been really interesting already, and to do this in person was really fun. So thanks, Jake. All right, my friend, we're almost there. I just asked our friends this question, and you get to answer too. We've been here all week. We've gotten to hang out with, like I said, 500 of our closest friends. So I'm curious about, for you, what is something that you're going to take away from the OMC Great Gathering?
I think the main thing that I'm going to take away is hope and encouragement. It is really affirmed that this work matters so much, and not just camping ministry and that work. Of course, we know that matters, but the gathering across traditional lines and meeting new people and getting ideas from other Christian traditions. This ecumenical work is so important, and it's so valuable when we get together and we listen to one another. And so I'm really going to take that away. And there's more work to do. We all have work to do with this because we love sitting in our silos. And I even saw that here at the gathering. There were people that, we talk about it on summer staff sometimes. The staff have been clumping, where the good friends, it's natural because they're making their best friends at camp, and they tend to gravitate towards one another. And we ask them, hey guys, remember to mix up and look for those people that are being left out, or those people that you might want to meet and get to know a little better. We're really intentional about this at camp, at least at effective camps we are. At the Great Gathering, I saw the same thing. There was clumping happening. And then I saw the really hopeful signs of people saying, I'm going to invite somebody new. I'm going to meet somebody new. And so the value of sitting down with somebody, and I had a breakfast the other day, and I was sitting down, and my friend was like, hey, I'd like to introduce you to Brian. I was like, oh, hi, Brian. How you doing? And I sat down, and it dawned on me after I had a sip of coffee that's Brian McLaren that I'm sitting next to. And hi, it reoriented, but it was just he's such a non-assuming guy and so genuine. There was no, don't you know who I am? There was nothing like that. It was super genuine. And so being able to meet people in person like that and to reach outside of our individual silos, it can be so valuable. And you might be surprised at who you meet and who you sit next to, like I was that morning. So what a gift it was to be in person. I'm so hopeful for the future, and the future of camping ministry is bright, and especially if we partner together and we learn from one another like we did this week. So that's my main takeaway, and I'm so excited for the future for us.
Amen. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to catch every new episode. If this is helpful for you and your organization and your team, follow the link in the show notes to become a supporter of the podcast. Our theme music was written and performed by Weekend Picnic. Find their original songs anywhere you get your music, or visit them at weekendpicnicband.com. Sacred Playgrounds is generating insights, equipping leaders, and connecting partners to help camping ministries thrive. Learn more about what we've got going on, view current research projects, and connect with our team at sacredplaygrounds.com.